Welcome to your older sister. This is a bit of a different video. I'm sharing with you some research related very much to the rapture with some hard facts. So what you see on the screen is a screenshot from the official NASA website, and this is about the asteroid Apophis that will come close to Earth on April the 13th, 2029. And apparently it will be 32,000 kilometers from our planet's surface, closer than the distance of many satellites. So that's the estimate distance. However, this can be quite different if we come to the actual date. And I'm bringing this up because there is a very interesting interview of Tom Horn, who is a scholar of the Bible. He has studied it for many years. He has already passed. He had very prophetic dreams. He had actually two quite prophetic dreams, and he also did some research, and we're going to listen to that now.
So approximately 1 year ago now, went to bed, same scenario, 2 a.m. in the morning, and all of a sudden, I woke up into this panoramic, almost like a film that's playing out in front of me, and I'm in the middle of it. And what I first thought I was looking at was a giant fiery dragon, deep up in space, moving, undulating like a serpent, racing towards the earth. Then suddenly my point of view changed, and now I was up above the object, and I could see that it was not a fiery dragon, but rather it was a giant space rock, an asteroid. And the way it was turning as it was moving through the space in the light of the sun was glistening off of the elements of the stone. It only gave it the appearance that it was moving back and forth. Now, all of a sudden, I'm back on Earth again. And now I am surrounded by literally tens of thousands of people, and we are on a mountain. And we are running for our lives. And people everywhere are screaming and begging God to deliver them from what is coming. And I turn and I look over my shoulder, and I can see this fiery mountain, basically, this giant rock entering into the atmosphere, burning as it comes through the atmosphere, breaking apart as it comes through the atmosphere. A huge part of it strikes the ocean, a huge part of it strikes the earth, and all of a sudden, the earth is shaking so violently that none of us can stand up. Oh, as this is playing out, I'm terrified. All of a sudden, I wake up and said, I almost fell out of bed on my face. I mean, I had cold chills all over me. I'd never seen anything this vivid or terrifying. I start writing it down, but then all of a sudden, it was as if a voice. I don't know if this was just in my head or if it was an audible sound in the room, but it was as if a voice spoke and it said one word, Apophis.
And Apophis is actually an ancient Egyptian deity who embodied darkness and disorder, and was thus the opponent of light and might. And he was also known as the Lord of Chaos, who was seen as a giant snake or serpent, leading to such titles as Serpent from the Nile and Evil Dragon. So one has to really wonder why NASA is calling this asteroid Apophis. And Tom will give us some more information related to that asteroid later. And he also is going to make a link to the prophecy from the Revelation, where there is also a star mentioned that is called Wormwood. And Wormwood could be the asteroid Apophis. And Tom will speak more about that. This next section from Tom is from the year 2020, and in this section he speaks about the year 2025. So let's listen to it.
This question, how the Jewish feasts are connected to the arrival of Apophis. Well, I happen to be doing programs last year in the old studio with Derek Gilbert. And while we were talking about Apophis and the wormwood prophecy, I made the case that if Apophis is the fulfillment of the wormwood prophecy, Revelation chapter 8. That would happen in the middle of the Great Tribulation period. And then I made this point. I said, so if you are, and most evangelical Christians, whether they know it or not, are dispensationalists who believe in a 7-year tribulation period, if that's what you believe, and if Apophis is wormwood, then with that being in the middle of the tribulation period, you would count backward 3.5 years to arrive at the beginning of what is called the 7-year Great Tribulation period. Well, while I was saying that, Derek and Sharon, who were interviewing me, Derek is sitting across and he's got his iPad or whatever it is he's using, his MacBook, and he had opened a Jewish calendar, a Hebrew calendar, on his device. And he went 3.5 years earlier, and he literally turned pale because 3.5 years earlier, before the impact of Apophis, to the day is the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, we probably don't have enough time for me to explain all the ways in which end times prophecy experts connect the Feast of Tabernacles and the Feast of Trumpets with the beginning of the 7-year tribulation period and the second coming of Jesus Christ. But just suffice to say this, it not only falls into the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles, but literally on the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles in 2025. So just 5 years from now. Why is that important? Because the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles is when the ancient Hebrews, get this, sacrificed 7 bulls in commemoration of God delivering them from all of the gods of the nations, but in particular, delivering them from the gods of Egypt, and in particular, delivering them from Apophis, the ancient Egyptian god of chaos. Literally, that day in antiquity is 3.5 years to the day from when Apophis is going to strike the earth, is when the Hebrews will be celebrating how God in antiquity delivered them from Apophis. So is God going to deliver his own people 3.5 years earlier? 10 days before that is the Feast of Trumpets, which is also connected to the second coming of Christ. Why? Because the Apostle Paul drew a parallel to the Feast of Trumpets when he said, at the last trump, so during the Feast of Trumpets, the shofar is sounded 100 times. Paul says, at the last trump, the dead in Christ shall rise. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. But get this, in 2025, 120 days before that is the Feast of Pentecost. And in biblical numerology, the number 120 is the number of the end of mankind. God said in Genesis, my spirit will not always strive with man, for his years will be 120. And that set the pattern for that to be the representation of the end of mankind. Of course, Moses was also a parody of that in that he died at 120 years of age. So all of these highly important Jewish feasts that are connected to the second coming of Christ are absolutely connected 3.5 years earlier from the impact of Apophis, which I believe is the fulfillment of the wormwood prophecy of Revelation chapter 8.
So if you take Tom Horn's prophetic dream and research serious, which I do, and I hope you do too, we can calculate the rapture for the Feast of Trumpets, which is in 2025, the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. These are high watch days for the rapture in September. This also confirms the date that Joshua shared. I'm going to link the video here so that you can have a look at it. I really advise you to watch it if you haven't watched it, and if you have seen it and you are still doubtful, I hope you see Tom Horn's prophetic vision and his dreams as a confirmation for the dates that Joshua has given us. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.